Good morning, I'm Robert Tan, and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. S&P Global Ratings has affirmed the Philippines investment grade rating at BBB+, with a positive outlook. The agency cited resilient growth prospects despite a high-profile corruption scandal this year. The rating remains one notch below the government's A target. A positive outlook signals the possibility of an upgrade within 2 years if reforms persist. The Philippines has climbed 9 spots in the 2025 Global Talent Competitive Index, ranking 75th of 135 economies. The report by INSEAD and the Portulans Institute gave the country a score of 42.39, its strongest showing since 2021. The Anti-Money Laundering Council has reported that nearly 4 billion pesos flowed into 205 bank accounts of fugitive Bilyonaryo politico Zaldy Co during his last 4 years as a party list representative. Documents obtained by Bilyonaryo show deposits totaling 3.99 billion pesos from 2021 to 2025, far exceeding his reported earnings as a businessman. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Laurel Jr. is considering a cyber libel complaint against former House Appropriations Chair Zaldy Co, alleging false claims of Department of Agriculture irregularities. Laurel said the potential filing is under review. The Bureau of Customs is investigating luxury vehicles tied to 28 construction firms amid suspected tax evasion. Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno said confiscations, including cars owned by Sara and Curly Descaya, are part of an ongoing probe. S&P Global Ratings has affirmed the Philippines BBB+ and A2 credit ratings with a positive outlook, despite slower growth tied to a stalled public works scandal. The economy grew 4% in the third quarter. S&P said long-term prospects remain strong, leaving room for a future upgrade. Executive Secretary Ralph Rector called the rating a vote of confidence in President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s leadership, pledging to safeguard that trust through sound policies. S&P noted recent flood control controversies are unlikely to derail the country's growth. Steady investment and steady consumption, the agency said, will keep the economy resilient. The Philippines has climbed in the annual ranking of countries' ability to attract and retain talent. It jumped 9 spots to 75th out of 135 economies in the 2025 Global Talent Competitiveness Index, its best showing since 2021 when it ranked 70th. The rise is credited to strong lifelong learning, digital engagement, and professional management practices, even as attracting foreign talent remains a challenge. The country was the only lower middle income economy to rank in the top 10 for soft skills, with communication and teamwork noted as key strengths. The index said weaknesses remain in external openness and governance, but the country is building capabilities to support higher value industries. The Anti-Money Laundering Council, or AMLC, has flagged nearly 4 billion pesos in deposits across 205 bank accounts linked to the fugitive ex-congressman Zaldy Co during his last 4 years as a party list representative. The council said that the inflows far exceeded his reported business earnings and found no clear legal or economic basis for his bank balances, insurance policies, or high-end aircrafts. Co is also linked to alleged ghost flood control projects and multi-billion peso kickback schemes while serving as House Appropriations Chair. The council has frozen its assets, citing probable cause that they stem from corruption and other unlawful activities. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Laurel Jr. is rejecting claims by resigned Bicol Representative Zaldy Co that First Lady Liza Araneta-Marcos and her brother were involved in agricultural irregularities. Laurel said he is preparing a cyber libel case, accusing Co of staging a self-made Netflix series to distract from his own flood control controversy. He added that Co sought excessive import allocations for sugar, rice, and fish, and requested that the department denied under stricter, more transparent rules. The First Lady called the allegation theatrics, denying involvement and saying she remains focused on her law professor duties. The Bureau of Customs is stepping up its crackdown, now probing 28 luxury vehicles linked to construction firms over possible import and tax irregularities. Chief Ariel Nepomuceno said he won't name the contractors involved to prevent them from moving the suspicious vehicles. Nepomuceno added that the Bureau is conducting fair, non-selective investigations, noting that the Diskaya case was prioritized only due to its high profile. The first Diskaya auction brought in 38 million pesos, far short of the 103 million peso target. A second auction is scheduled for December. We'll be right back with a closer look at the Philippine economy, what's holding it back, what's driving growth, and how it can stay resilient. The economy is entering a critical period. Growth has lost momentum in recent quarters. Price pressures remain high for many Filipino households, and volatility is hitting trade, investment, and the peso. At the same time, corruption controversies and questions of governance have weighed on business sentiment, adding new uncertainty to an already complex economic landscape. This hour, we take a clearer look at the Philippine current economic environment, the weaknesses, how exposed, and the opportunities still emerging, and the reforms needed to put the country on a more resilient path. And joining us via Zoom is Alex Escucha, chairman of the UP Visayas Foundation and fellow of the Foundation for Economic Freedom. Welcome to Business 360, Alex. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Robert.
Now, Alex, based on the indicators and trends you monitor, what's the real state of the Philippine economy right now?
Well, I'm somewhere in between the pessimists and the very positive government statements. Point number one, the economy is still growing, but the third quarter report of 4% is almost as bad as the 97 crisis and the average of the pandemic years. That said, it is the most important component there is, of course, the slowdown in the infrastructure spending, which was expected because, as I said 2.5 weeks ago, the DPWH is practically at a standstill because nobody was signing papers and clearances. And even the DBM has tightened, according to the DBM high officials, they have tightened their own releases of the SAROS and the NCA, or Notice of Cash Allocations. And that will persist for the next 2 to 3 quarters.
Wow. Now,
however, the real source of the slowdown, Robert, is the slowdown in the growth of personal consumption. If you notice in the last 30 years, 2 things to point out there. On the demand side, consumption is 70% of the economy. So if the economy is growing by 6 to 6.5%, 4.9% of that is just personal consumption alone. So any slowdown there will really be almost 3/4 of the growth number. But hopefully that is not really, because the underlying sources of consumption still remains. The OFW remittances, the BPOs.
Yes. Now, Alex, you mentioned a slowdown in consumption. Now, with inflation biting and the peso unstable, now how heavy is the pressure now on Filipino households and businesses at this moment?
Allow me to challenge the predicate of that question. Inflation is actually quite low. In fact, the numbers are such that the BSP, the central bank, is given enough space to cut another quarter point in
Mhm.
the interest rates. No,
Mhm.
but I'd like to connect 2 points. Why inflation rate has lowered, but the SWS survey says food inflation is still a major concern, the top two or top three. That is because when food prices went up, it just stayed there. Even if food inflation is zero, it's still high at that level where it stopped. No, so that means it's an affordability
Mhm.
issue for the poor people. I've been tracking the not only the top headline inflation rate as reported by the PSA. The last portion
Mhm.
of the report
Mhm. Yeah.
refers to the bottom
Mhm.
30% inflation.
Yes.
And 80% of the inflation for the bottom 30% is
Mhm.
food and basic necessities.
Mhm.
But
Now,
surprisingly,
mhm.
in September, the food inflation for the bottom 30% was zero.
Mhm. Now, Alex, looking at the BIR, it's now tightening collections, rolling out reforms, but they are right now under scrutiny itself. Now, what necessary push for revenue, or is this a drag on business confidence with what's happening right now?
That's a good question. Allow me to put my own takeaways on that. Number one, uh, it's still a surprise to me why the BIR head was replaced. I don't know the real reason, but just 2 weeks after he reported that the BIR collections were at a record high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. On the other hand, the second point is that Secretary of Finance Dec Go is a private sector person, so he's very much in tune with
Mm-hmm.
the concerns of the businessmen, especially the MSMEs.
Mm-hmm.
So one of his first announcements during his first 2 weeks in office was to remove the letter of authority, which is like a Damocles sword dangling
Uh-huh.
over the small businessman. That is a very good development. I think, in
But
my
where do you
point.
see the disconnect with what's happening today?
Well, uh, if you in my interviews, I've always focused on the underlying structural trends and not on the current noises.
Yes.
No, in fact, if we may segue to the S&P report, you've seen the BMI report of
Mm-hmm.
Fitch, which has 5 lines of potential risks, and yet the Fitch report says the triple B rating is still retained
Mm-hmm.
and their outlook is stable.
Mm-hmm. No,
Even the Standard and Poor's, the rating is still retained.
yes.
In fact, their outlook is stable. Is in fact positive.
Now,
So if you're really incorporating all of these concerns and risk into your matrix of indicators, then and if the numbers say so, they should have already downgraded the outlook from positive to stable or even negative.
but as you
But they
see,
did not
yeah.
do that.
But do you see that data sometimes has a disconnect with what's happening on the ground? Now, moving forward, when we look at the flooding, flooding continues to cripple cities and commerce. Now, from an economic standpoint, how urgent is large-scale flood control investment, and how can that now happen with the looming issues surrounding that?
Well, I have two key points there. One is that large-scale flood control is not the solution apparently because we spent over 1 trillion pesos from NEP to GAA in the previous budget years of 23, 24, and 25. And that represented 2.5 to 3% of GDP. But since at least half of that is wasted, that's the reason why I said in my previous interviews, we were ramping up the infra to GDP ratio, but we were not getting we were spending the buck, but we were not getting the bang for it because it is wasted. No? So to me, uh, there are two key takeaways from me. For me, we need not be helpless. There are already best practice that is staring us in the face. Marikina is an excellent example. During Ondoy, it was very well flooded, but after that, they made BF Fernando, who was an engineer, started the whole trend
Okay.
that
Yes.
they did the flood control right. So,
Alex, and finally, even with the headwinds, where do you see the most promising growth sectors or emerging opportunity pockets today?
well, obviously, the on the demand side, we're still growing on the consumption side because the ability to spend is still coming from there. On the supply side, we're still very much a service
Mm-hmm.
industry. Our manufacturing exports are still concentrated, but I agree with former NEDA head Carl Chua that there are opportunities for growth. In fact, the good news is that remember after this brouhaha about us being slapped all of these tariffs, the
Mm-hmm.
end result was that a number of our electronics exports were exempted, and even a few of our agricultural products were also exempted from the tariffs.
Yeah,
So
not
it's
affected by
not
that,
really
yes.
that everything was not that bad as the noise that we saw earlier.
And Alex, if policymakers asked you today for one bold, high impact step to accelerate growth, what would you push first and why?
Well, I would still go for accountability, and among my because the real message is that we the culprits are identified, they are jailed, the money is returned, and it doesn't happen again. So to me, if there's only one thing to do, enact the Freedom of Information Law and enact the two bills, Senate 1512 and HB 5699, to really empower the Independent People's Commission against corruption to make it really permanent like the Hong Kong Anti-Corruption Agency.
Alex, thank you for sharing us your insights and joining us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert.
And a closer look at the data and decisions that matter most to your bottom line. Overnight gains in the U.S. and Europe are shaping trading across Asia this morning. U.S. markets were closed Thursday for Thanksgiving and will reopen today for a shortened session. Investors are betting on a 25-point rate cut from the Federal Reserve, fueling a global rally. European markets closed higher, lifted in part by optimism over a possible Russia-Ukraine ceasefire. And let's check on how Asian markets are doing this morning. So far, the Nikkei 225, Hang Seng, Kospi, and Shanghai Composite are currently in the red, while ASX 200 and the Straits Times Index are in the green. Meanwhile, trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange has opened, so let's look at the initial figures. The PSEI is in the green, trading at 59.91. Majority of the sub-indices are in the green, with advancers currently outpacing decliners 67 to 49. So far, value turnover has reached 487 million pesos. On the currency front, the peso opened at 58.73 against the dollar, up from its previous close of 58.76. The tokenized asset market could reach $60 billion by 2030, led by public equities and government bonds, investment firms said. A report, Project Bayani, the Philippines Asset Tokenization Opportunity from the Philippine Digit Asset Exchange and Partners, highlighted the country's push toward financial innovation through tokenization. Research shows 14% of Filipinos own crypto, compared with less than 5% in stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. In 2023, the Bureau of the Treasury launched peso-denominated tokenized treasury bonds, raising 10 billion pesos via digital tokens on a distributed ledger. The Philippine Ports Authority, or PPA, is on track for another record year. Revenue is up 11% to 25 billion pesos even before the peak holiday season. Net income jumped more than 50% to 10.67 billion pesos from 7.08 billion pesos last year. Growth is driven by stronger cargo volume across ports as global trade rebounds following the rollback of early year U.S. tariffs. PPA expects year-end cargo to reach 301.47 million metric tons and passenger movement to hit 85.41 million. Firefighters in Hong Kong have mostly contained the blaze that ripped through a Tai Po housing estate for more than 24 hours. This left at least 83 people dead in the city's worst fire since 1948. Police arrested 2 directors and an engineering consultant from the firm handling the building's maintenance, saying they used unsafe materials. Meantime, 23 Filipino domestic workers were affected, including 1 hospitalized and 1 reported missing. The Department of Foreign Affairs said it is working with Hong Kong authorities to determine the missing workers' whereabouts and is closely monitoring the situation. The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration also confirmed that 19 OFWs were rescued as the government extends assistance. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Robert Tan. Thank you for joining us. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.